We've all been there, right? You're staring at this massive goal, a new career, a complete life overhaul. You've got the perfect sister, the 6-month blueprint on a whiteboard for totally new you.
Mm.
And yet you hit the gas, you drive maybe 10 miles, and then you crash right into the same old wall. You send us such a fascinating stack of sources because they really capture this exact tension.
That tension is the absolute core of the problem. On one hand, you have these very deep psychological sources that are all about the
Hmm.
why we self-sabotage, why any real transformation feels terrifying. And on the other hand, you get these almost aggressive, super specific action plans, all about the how.
All about the how. Skill acceleration, identity overhauls, system building.
Exactly.
So our mission today is to fuse them, to take these two approaches and build a complete map for change. We need that internal compass to get through the psychological traps
Mm.
and the detailed external blueprint to actually build the new life. It's combining the deep analysis with the aggressive execution.
Precisely. We're synthesizing that subconscious need for safety, the thing that creates these internal obstacle, what we're going to call the mountain, with the highly structured external methods you need for that systemic rebuilding.
Hmm?
You have to understand the resistance first, and then engineer your whole environment so that the resistance becomes, well, irrelevant.
Oh, okay, so let's start at the foundation, the invisible mountain. The way Brianna Wiest frames this is just, it's so powerful. The thing blocking your life, the thing you're fighting, it isn't some external barrier.
Right.
The mountain is inside you. It's built from, avoided emotions, unmet needs, all these fears from the past.
And what's fascinating is that this mountain isn't malicious. It's
Huh.
it's misguided protection.
Mhm.
Self-sabotage is almost never about laziness. It exists because the unconscious mind thinks it's protecting you, but not from failure. It's protecting you from change, which reads as genuine danger. It's an act of allegiance to what's familiar, even if what's familiar is miserable.
And it shows up in these incredibly subtle ways. Like, it's the perfectionism that says, if I can't do it perfectly, I'm not even going to start.
Yeah.
Or that overthinking loop where talking about the thing becomes more satisfying than actually doing the thing. Or, and this is a big one, the constant restarting. New job, new city. Not for adventure, but because you're running from some uncomfortable truth you're scared to face.
That is the Jungian concept of the hidden cycle, right there in action. The unconscious mind fights for stability, for homeostasis, above all else. Just think about the loop.
Hmm.
You have an unmet need, maybe a core fear of being seen or truly failing. That triggers a protective behavior, like procrastination. You quit right before you succeed.
Mm-hmm.
That behavior sabotages your progress, which then just reinforces your old identity. See, I always ruin things. And that, in turn, strengthens the original fear, so the loop just gets faster and stronger.
It's a circular logic. It's completely self-sealing. And that's why you can map out a perfect daily habit every Sunday and then abandon it like clockwork at 2 p.m. on Wednesday.
Yes, that's the moment.
Or you leave that huge life-changing job application open on your screen for 3 weeks, but you never click submit. Your conscious mind wants the promotion, but your emotional system is just screaming, danger, unknown territory. And it wins. It always wins because it's older and louder.
So the first step to dismantling this whole cycle is just acknowledgement. We have to stop seeing our emotions as threats. They're not obstacles, they're signals.
Yeah.
A really precise emotional compass telling you where you are and what you need.
I love that distinction in the sources between intuition and reaction. It's about learning how to decode that compass. Like, when anger shows up, it's not a cue to just rage. It's a signal. A boundary has been crossed.
Exactly. And sadness isn't a weakness. It signals that something meaningful has been lost or needs to be grieved. And shame. Shame often just means your recent choices are out of line with your core values, with the person you actually want to be. And it's so critical to distinguish true intuition, which feels calm, clear, stable, like a lighthouse, from those emotional reactions that come from old wounds. Those feel like stress, confusion, this overwhelming urgency. When you can just name the emotion and hear its message without judging yourself, the pressure that holds that internal mountain up, it just starts to dissipate. You reclaim control.
So if the internal mountain starts to fade, once we understand the emotional message, we've cleared the fog. But, we haven't set the destination. Once that inner conflict is dealt with, where does the blueprint tell us to aim? This feels like the transition from internal work to setting a radically higher ideal.
We have to define the summit and the blueprint. It just bypasses all the shallow, modern stuff about optimization hacks.
Yeah.
Takes us straight to this timeless ideal of the Renaissance man, which is really the antidote to our current culture of hyper-specialization and, frankly, vanity.
That's a fascinating pivot. Let's trace those classical roots for a second.
Yeah,
We're talking about the Greek idea of kalokagathia, which wasn't just, being physically beautiful. It was this combination of external beauty and inner virtue.
exactly. And then you have the concept of arete, which we often translate as virtue, but that's not quite right. It really means excellence. It means shining with your full potential in whatever you do. A baker or a king, it doesn't matter. It's about being the most effective version of yourself.
And then the Romans translated that into virtus, which at first was about military manliness, but it evolved into something much broader: civic values, self-control, intelligence, the ideal for any good citizen.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting for anyone trying to learn and grow. This ideal of a fully realized, well-rounded person required a universal, holistic education. They called it paideia. The Greeks combined that with the word enkykleos, which means circular or all-rounded. Put them together, enkykleos paideia, and you get the origin of our word. Encyclopedia. The original encyclopedia wasn't a list of facts. It was an educational map for becoming a fully realized person.
Nice.
It demanded mastery across rhetoric, math, medicine, and physical culture.
That completely reframes the standard. We're not just aiming for a slight improvement, we're aiming for a universal ideal. How do we bridge that historical standard with the modern need for fast, decisive change? This is where that identity overhaul comes in.
The sources are crystal clear on this. Most transformations fail because people just staple new habits, the 5 a.m. club, the gym routine, onto the same old self-image.
Right.
And it's like trying to build a skyscraper on a swamp. The identity always sinks the habits.
So the core instruction is you have to burn the blueprint of who you've been. You have to stop seeing yourself as a product of your past, your limitations, your trauma, and start seeing yourself purely as the product of your next choice. Every single choice, no matter how small, casts a very real vote for who you're becoming.
And the practical step here isn't just philosophical. It demands action. You choose your archetype. You write a precise one-page identity profile of the person you are becoming, their habits, their boundaries, their posture, their default emotional state. And then from day one, you just act as if you live that new identity until the old one starves to death.
Okay, so once that internal identity shift is happening, we need external systems to lock it in place. And the first, most undeniable proof of change, according to these blueprints, is the body.
Absolutely. The body is the receipt for discipline. Changing your physical form and your output is the fastest, clearest, most undeniable way to prove to yourself that you can execute long-term change. No compromise.
But the whole self-help world makes this so complicated. There's this paralysis of optimization. The blueprints just reject that. They stress a very simple, high-leverage formula. Lift heavy, consistently, focus on compound movements, walk a lot, get that 10,000 steps minimum, eat intentionally high-protein, unprocessed foods.
And sleep like your entire life depends on it. 7.5 hours, minimum. And the goal is not one perfect day. That's fleeting. The goal is 100 average repetitive days. We have to learn to tell the difference between discomfort and danger. Discomfort is the signal of growth. The trap is confusing temporary comfort with long-term safety.
Okay, so let's turn that physical discipline into actual power. Skill acceleration. The focus here is ruthlessly practical. Stackable, monetizable, rare skills that solve painful problems for other people. We're talking high-leverage stuff like advanced copywriting, sales, specific coding languages, high-end video editing.
This is where the intensity principle comes in. You don't treat this like a hobby you dabble in for an hour. You treat it like you're training for the Olympics. The blueprint suggests the deep dive. 7 solid days, 8+ hours a day, a simulated boot camp.
And the real measure of success isn't finishing a course. It's getting paid within 90 days. You need real-world feedback, real pressure, real output. That's what forces you to become competent.
And we also integrate this creative system to feed that Renaissance spirit without adding distraction. The structure is demanding. You pick one creative outlet: writing, video, AI art, whatever. You use a fixed time box every week, and you commit to delivering 12 public outputs. And the directive is strict. No perfection. Ship it. Get feedback. Move on.
That pressure to deliver is the engine. But all of this collapses if your daily environment is fighting you.
That's maybe the most critical insight here. Your environment will always beat your willpower. Always. It acts as the operating system that runs you. Willpower is just a single app trying to fight a buggy OS. It's going to lose.
So we have to get surgical. Step 1 is subtraction, the purge. You have to ruthlessly remove everything. Digital subscriptions, physical clutter, and crucially, those social -1 connections that belong to the old you. If a relationship or a habit doesn't align with the new identity, it has to go on the kill list.
The purge is often painful, but it's absolutely necessary. And then step 2 is the intentional rebuild. You create sacred zones for focused work, for rest, for training. You make bad habits harder, get the junk food out of the house. You make good habits unavoidable, put your gym bag by the door. You design the environment to force the new actions so you don't have to rely on motivation, which, comes and goes.
Okay. External systems are running, the identity is set. Now we have to fortify the command center, the mind.
Mhm.
Psychological fortification is so key because real resilience isn't denial. It's not pretending everything's positive.
No. Real resilience is the ability to take a hit, process the information without self-pity or blame, and just keep moving forward. It's not about avoiding pain. It's about shortening your recovery time from it.
And this is where understanding the adjustment shock is so important. When you start making massive changes, your system, which is wired for stability, for familiarity, it panics. That feeling of severe anxiety, that urge to quit. It's not a sign you're failing. It's a sign your brain is rapidly reorganizing. Growth feels chaotic because you're losing the very thing you used to rely on for safety, familiarity.
To fight that chaos, you need voluntary hardship. Seeking out controlled discomfort, cold showers, a really hard workout, a difficult but necessary conversation. It normalizes discomfort. It turns it into a state of being, not a warning sign to retreat.
And the practice of stillness, even just 10 minutes a day, it's essential. Stillness increases the gap between an impulse and your intentional action. And that gap, that's where freedom and maturity live.
To ground all this psychological strength, the blueprints introduce these very specific high-leverage structural goals. These provide measurable, non-negotiable stability. This isn't motivation, this is systems hardening.
Let's frame these for the listener. They cover the biggest areas of instability. First, financial hardening. Get a 6-month living buffer and ruthlessly kill any high-interest debt leakage. The psychological relief from that is huge.
For anyone in a technical field, the blueprints even prescribe things like home infrastructure OS consolidation, setting up a dedicated Proxmox server for total control, making sure automated encrypted backups are just running flawlessly. The principle is to maximize stability with technology, not by relying on fallible, manual human effort.
And career acceleration means mastering foundational, high ROI concepts. Not just collecting random certifications, but locking in knowledge on infrastructure as code with tools like Terraform or specializing in a critical security overlay. It's about building stability in systems that have high value.
And this is immediately followed by the kill list. We have to filter out the noise. Do not start random certifications without a clear ROI. Do not start new social media platforms that don't directly feed your monetizable skill. And crucially, eliminate open-ended gaming or consumption loops. They are just endless, low-leverage distractions.
And finally, it all loops back to that Renaissance ideal, the concept of humanitas. It reminds us that this transformation isn't just for self-centered gain. True excellence prepares you to serve your community. The end goal has to have an outward focus, or you fall into the trap that so much of modern self-improvement falls into.
And this whole transformation is anchored in self-validation, relying on your internal principles, not on external approval or fleeting inspiration. Consistency beats intensity every single time. To climb higher, you have to set down that backpack full of rocks, the old beliefs, the old identities. You revisit your younger self with compassion. And at the same time, you create that North Star future self through disciplined, aligned action.
Ultimately, self-mastery is just interrupting that emotional loop before it spirals. Acknowledge the emotion, the fear, the anger without judging it, and then intentionally choose your response. Cast that vote for the new identity.
So we've covered identifying that internal mountain, the one built from unmet needs and fear, and we've laid out a pretty comprehensive blueprint for identity, body, skills, and your environment.
If radical transformation is really built through thousands of these tiny micro choices, all aligned with who you're becoming, and if your biggest fears right now are the compass pointing directly toward your greatest growth,
Then we ask you, what specific small action are you most terrified of doing this week? The one that you know would cast a definitive vote for your future self. Find that exact fear, the one that triggers all the avoidance, and confront it head on. That small act of confrontation, that is the beginning of the climb.